Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind Your Eyes Season 5, Episode 2. Today, my guest is Anna. So, hi, Anna, if you would like to introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am an author, a college student, a yoga teacher. I'm kind of a mix of many
Mhm,
things. Um, I live in the US and I have a particular interest in mental health, especially post-pandemic,
mhm,
and kind of looking at younger generations. And I kind of went through my own mental health journey 2 years ago.
mhm,
And that led me to make some changes in my life and make some changes with my health, mentally, physically, kind of with all the ways. And I could see that a lot of the changes I was making were resonating with people around me.
mhm,
So I wanted to, since then, I've really been wanting to kind of share what I've learned, share what's worked for me, and have these conversations.
mhm. And I always start with the same question, which is sincere. How are you doing?
I am good. I really can say that I'm actually doing very well today. Of
Mhm,
course, it changes day by day, but
mhm.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for asking.
And like you said, you've struggled with depression from a young age. And what was that time like for you, and how did you deal with that?
Mm. Yeah, so I've dealt with depression on and off since I was 11, and it had always been pretty manageable. I'd been in and out of therapy for all those years, but it really hit a low point about 2 years ago, and I had to really just take a break from all the things that I was doing.
Mhm,
And it had gotten to the point where I needed to stop, and um, I got myself into more intensive therapy. I was going more often, and it forced me to really look at a lot of past trauma and things that had happened in my past that I hadn't wanted to look at or deal with up
mhm.
until that point. So
Yeah.
for me, it was a lot about looking at, yeah, things that I had probably turned a blind eye to
Mhm.
before.
And what was that like? Was that like negative patterns or negative thoughts, or how did that express itself for you?
For me, it was a lot of holding on to beliefs and patterns
Hmm.
that I needed when I was younger and that had served me at that time, but that just were no longer working and that wasn't sustainable. Like for me, I was very guarded in a lot of ways and concerned with how I looked to other people. So like I
Hmm.
always needed to be the strong one and I never would let anyone know when like I was having a bad day or how I was feeling. Um and I really saw like that acknowledgement of any kind of perceived negative feelings as a bad thing or a weak thing. So I didn't even let myself go there.
Hmm.
Um and of course that just culminated into not a good place.
Hmm. And when did that awareness start for you to deal with it and get help?
I was in college. I'm still in college, but I was at a different university than I am now. And school had always been a very safe space for me and kind of like the one constant that I could rely on. Um, so when I was not able to focus or like when my grades started slipping, when I couldn't get through a class without like having a panic attack or needing to leave,
Hmm.
and really wasn't looking forward to it, that's when I knew that I needed
Hmm.
more help than I could give myself. Um,
Hmm.
yeah.
And you also developed anxiety during that period?
Yeah, that was something. Depression I had experience with, but anxiety was new for me.
Hmm.
So that also, yeah, it kind of came all at once.
Hmm. And how did you deal with that situation?
That was similar. It really came together for me at that time because probably a year prior I had no I was not dealing with depression at the time. And as I said, never had anxiety. So it was
Hmm.
all new for me, and scary.
Hmm.
And I am lucky in that my mom is a psychiatrist, so I've grown
Hmm.
up with that background, and I have someone that I can kind of turn to if I
Hmm.
need advice in that realm. And so I reached out to her, and when I was 11, I don't have many memories of that time, um, but I was very severely depressed when I was 11, and went on medication, and within a year it was more manageable.
Hmm.
Um, but my mom was saying that I looked and was behaving exactly like I was when I was in that really dark place when I was 11. So it was like a
Hmm.
sign to kind of everybody that let's look at a little deeper at what's going on.
Hmm. And how did your healing journey start from there?
It was taking a break. I dropped out of school. I moved back home, and I had those next 4 months where I took the semester off of school, and all I did was work on myself and like
Mhm.
devote myself to that healing journey. And as someone who previously had always been like on the go and like never would give myself a second to do anything,
Mhm.
it was very scary to look at my calendar and have nothing on my calendar now for the next 4 months. I was like, what am I going to do with all this time?
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, it was the most formative months of my life now.
Mhm.
And yeah, as I said, looking deeper at past traumas. And at that time, I signed up and got my yoga teacher certification, which was also very helpful for me,
Mhm.
and was kind of the perfect thing for me to be doing at that time.
Yeah, because was it important for you to maybe you were in your mind a lot that to reconnect with your body again?
Yes, that mind body connection I had never even thought of
Mhm.
or like knew
Yeah.
was a thing.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly important for me. And it seemed like the only thing that I could kind of handle at the time because I
Mhm.
was really trying to figure out and anything to kind of take up some of my time. I remember we sat down at like the kitchen table and you were like maybe art classes or maybe going back to piano lessons, like all the things, and I nothing seemed like anything I could handle at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and I figured that this would be a good it would help me feel a little bit productive because I was really struggling with that. But
Mhm.
also, I knew it'd be a really reflective process for myself as well.
Yeah. So how did that help your mental health during that entire training?
The biggest thing for me was the community. I had never been in a community of people that were so open, and we all kind of seemed to be on the same journey in a way,
Mhm.
of using it for ourselves. But then once we found what it was about, we can't help but share it with other people.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just a very unique group. There were about close to 15, 20 of us. It was all held online on Zoom
Mhm.
because it was peak COVID times at that time. Um, and I was the youngest by far, and we ranged from at the time I was 20 to like 75. Like it was like a huge range of people.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that community became to be something I really relied on at the time.
Yeah, because how important is that support system?
It's vital. I mean,
Mhm.
it's so important. And even though I wasn't necessarily pouring my heart out and like telling everyone what was going on at the
Mhm.
time, you knew we shared bits and pieces, and you knew that everyone had their own struggles they were going through or had gone through.
Mhm.
Um, and it just made us all more human and kind of and at the same time we're learning all these incredibly helpful tools to bring us back and connect with ourselves, our mind and our bodies.
Yeah, and just knowing that you have that support system and people to share your struggles with, but also your victories with, is essential to healing, really.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mhm. And now you teach yoga to others, and what is like the essence of what you teach people?
Mm. For me, the biggest thing that I try to bring into my classes is finding a bit of peace, but also being learning to be comfortable with it because I learned that with myself, it's very uncomfortable at first to sit with yourself
Mhm.
and your thoughts if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a huge turnoff for people who are so used to being on the go.
Yeah.
Um, and I was that person. I remember going to my first yoga class way before the training. But I was like, this is such a waste of my time. Like, what am I going to do with this hour? Like, I have so many better things to be doing.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who are like that. So it's, for me, it's kind of the biggest thing is trying to reframe that.
Yeah.
And yeah, allow the space to be a little bit uncomfortable with sitting
Mhm.
in the stillness with yourself.
Yeah, and allowing the uncomfortable emotions and feelings to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's can be quite tricky for a lot of people. And I'm still dealing with that as well. I'm sometimes have to like, okay, I have a negative feeling coming up. What do I do with this? What is it trying to tell me?
Yeah, I mean, me too. I always, my immediate reaction always has been to like distract or avoid or like not
Hmm.
deal with it.
Yeah,
So
like shut
it's
it
a,
down immediately.
exactly. Yeah. So it's a practice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sit with the uncomfortable feelings and let them have space as well, because we allow space for the good things, for the happy thoughts and feelings, and we thrive in them. And we don't allow the negative feelings and emotions to have that same kind of space really.
Yeah.
And that's essential to, and also to be aware of those feelings, and then you can start to accept them.
Yeah, the awareness is key, I think. And like
Yeah.
once you, it's not trying to force any change at first, but
Hmm.
just becoming aware of whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, letting it be. And then change will naturally come after that. Because
Yeah.
once you're aware of it, you're gonna be more aware of it, not only like if you're on your yoga mat or in a specific time,
Mhm.
it's gonna carry through to other areas of your life.
Yeah, and also when you stop resisting and let it flow.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to ask you also about the book you have written. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah. That is The book is called For Your 20s, A Guide to Staying Connected Amidst the Chaos. And that was really such a fun project and so useful for me in my own mental health.
Mhm.
I started that when I was in at my low back at home, still not in school.
Mhm.
And that carried through. I've been working on that for the past like year now. Um, and it's all about, I really just wanted it to be kind of a prompt for more open conversations like the one we're having now, um, about how we're doing and like
Mhm.
not not just saying, yeah, like, as like that question at the beginning, like not just saying how are you, I'm fine, like
Mhm.
like let's like actually think about how we are.
Yeah.
um so it's kind of a combination of my own story, a bunch of other people that I was able to interview and seek advice from, and also a lot of research on different topics, that I was able to include, which was really interesting.
Mhm. And what would you like people to gain from it after reading it?
The awareness. I talk so much
Mhm.
and write so much about that, and I think it's so important for people my age, people younger than me, and people older, like everyone, to just
Mhm.
build those tools of self awareness.
Mhm.
And I also think that the younger generations have unique challenges and unique advantages of being in this generation.
Mhm.
So I wanted to speak directly to that, and I think that it's beneficial not only for us, but also for parents and educators, and
Mhm.
anyone who has um, kids or people in their 20s in their life. I think it's
Mhm.
important to understand that.
Yeah, because I think also the COVID period was especially difficult for younger kids that went to school or went to university, and suddenly that was all canceled, of course, and homeschooling was the thing.
Mhm.
So, what would you advise like teens and people in their 20s who are still struggling?
Accepting the struggle and
Mhm.
like knowing that it's okay to not be okay, but also I think reaching out and building connections when you can
Hmm.
um, helps, even though it's not what you want to do in the moment.
Hmm.
um, and for me, like as I like online communities became really important for me. And it's not even that I'm super close with everyone in those communities, but even just having it there and like being
Hmm.
able to turn to it when I felt like it, or checking in or having people check in on me, it was just a nice kind of like a baseline
Hmm.
for when maybe you feel like, I mean, of course, during COVID, we didn't have those in-person connections, but even still, the transition back was difficult. So allowing yourself room
Hmm.
for that is important.
Yeah, and of course it was also quite a lonely time because you said we didn't have the chance to really interact with each other except for online. But still online is very different from face to face and or being able to hug someone. So yeah, that was quite a transition, of course, we had to make. And I think it still could be difficult for people to like re-enter that social life like we did before.
Yeah, that's something I've even found is that I mean, I was so social before everything happened, and I've really faced a lot of um, difficulties getting back into it all because you
Hmm.
get so used to. Um, for me, it was a slower life during that
Hmm.
time, and I learned that that's actually good for me. So it's also
Yeah.
like making conscious changes in how I live my life and my lifestyle that is it's led to like differences in how I work and how I interact with friends and like all the
Hmm.
things.
Yeah, it causes quite a shift because I think balance has changed from overwhelm to okay, we have to actually make time for ourselves and for our
Mm.
thoughts, feelings, everything, and put a bit more focus on okay, what am I needing right now?
Yeah, yeah.
And what was like for personally most important lesson you have learned during your entire healing journey?
Most important lesson. I've learned many. I think I would say, oh, for me, the most important lesson was learning how to turn inwards, learning how to ask myself what I needed, and
Hmm.
then going with that, even though it didn't look like what others might want it to look like or what I might want it to look like.
Hmm.
Having the courage, you could say, to kind of just go after it and
Hmm.
stick to what makes you feel good.
And maybe also the courage to ask for help.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
That was a big lesson for me. And learning that it's not as scary as we make it out to be, and that,
Hmm.
majority of the time people want to help and support you. Um, and I've also found that after asking for help, it's really empowering to kind of own your story
Hmm.
and then share with others. And you see, like, even if you're not trying to in working with one person and trying to help them and help them solve whatever problems they're working on, um, leading by example is powerful.
Hmm. And I think still, even though a lot has already changed and improved, there's still kind of a stigma around asking for help and seeing it as a weakness and like, oh, I can do this by myself and I can figure it out.
Yeah, and I totally like subscribed to that belief
Hmm.
before, and that's what made it so. That's a big reason for why I got to that kind of low point. Um, but was because I didn't ask for help and was because I didn't want to admit to myself that I needed the help.
Yeah.
Um, and and I did, we all need help from time to time. It's
Hmm.
part of being human. Um, so learning to accept that, learning to get all the help I could get, and that for me that also came with medication, which was a whole other stigma
Hmm.
that I had to work through. Um, but yeah, there's no shame in asking for help. It makes you stronger for doing so.
Oh, yeah. It's empowering to have people around you who are there to support you, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, definitely.
Yeah.
And is there something that you still struggle with mentally?
I mean, I still struggle on a daily basis with anxiety and depression, but it's much, I think, learning the tools, for me, that came through yoga, meditation, therapy, building a support system for yourself, and always checking in. Like for me, the most important thing has been to not let myself kind of get away from my own feelings and my own body. I think it's easy for us, especially kind of in the society we live in today, to just like go to the next thing, like not give ourselves room to breathe. We get up, we check our phones, and we're like going for the day until we go to sleep. Like, let's give ourselves some time during the day to check in. And so that's been that's done wonders for me, which is, it's a simple thing, but it's because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. So learning how to do it has helped a lot.
Yeah, and also just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not effective.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because one of the things I always teach others is like just once every hour, check in with yourself, check your breathing. How's your body feeling? How are you breathing? Is it shallow or deep? And just for, even if it's just a minute, just check in with yourself.
It's like shocking how much that can do for you, because it really can just be a minute.
Yeah.
But just again, the awareness of where you're at is key.
Yeah. And besides yoga, is there any other way that you do self-care?
I have really kind of dived into my health, and like that has been a big way for me to care about myself and learn to love myself, um, in the form of like getting enough sleep. And I found that waking up really early in the morning and having like a few hours of like before everyone else is awake in the house to pour into whatever feels right, whether it's like a quick meditation or reading or even catching up on work, like whatever I feel like I need to do, giving myself that time. And also I found like a new love for 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 my health in general, like my brain health, my mental health, my emotional health, like really diving into how I am as like a whole being, and doing what I can to better myself. And also, it's, I think a big thing that I've learned is like learning to accept where you're at while um learning to better yourself, because I think it especially today, like there can be such a focus on the future and like getting to that best version of yourself, and like I think there's value in that, but also learning to just value where yourself as you are now.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't, like, if you can't grow if you don't accept yourself as you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the last question is always also the same one. Like, when are you at your happiest?
Mm. I love to travel, which is something that I haven't been able to do a ton recently. Um, but I think my happiest is when I'm meeting new people in a new place and really just feeling like I am on an adventure. I think it's an exciting small part of life, that most of us don't get to do all the time. But learning to kind of value those times, and then also kind of bring the adventure into your daily routines, and like learn to find a little fun in that.
And any new travel plans?
I don't know. I've got flights like up on my thing ready to book, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows what's yet to come, right?
I know.
Yeah, for now, just live in the moment.
Right.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for today. It was a joy to talk to you.
Thank you so much. This was great.